Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another TICPodcast. It is number 28, and I got some stuff that I was thinking randomly kind of wanted to talk about it for a little while. And, I thought, hey, I think I actually have a thought now. I think I actually have kind of a direction of where I want to kind of talk about the next show. And for those who don't know, I've been really watching a shit ton of stuff on Tubi. And, in the streaming wars, I feel like Tubi is kind of like, it's a force to be reckoned with. For those who have Netflix or Disney Plus, beware, because Tubi is coming for you. They have tons of shit that you probably would want to see, and it's for free. The only catch is that you have to have ads. And I feel like, it's a small price to pay when you have, like, so many options. And that leads me to my point. So, I saw on streaming that they have one of my favorite shows from the 90s that no one remembers. Being a 1990 baby, I gotta say that I've seen a shit ton of 90s cartoons. And one of my favorites was Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys. Yeah, that's how the show ended and started every episode. And what is Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys? It's Star Wars. It's Star Wars with monkey puns. Every episode, they bring up a joke about bananas. They're always making monkey puns and making things related to about monkeys. But it's also totally ripped out of Star Wars 1977. And I love it. I watched 3 episodes back to back on Tubi, and it looks glorious. They did a really better job than some of the bootleg versions I've seen on some of those pirate sites, because with a lot of these shows, if they're not on streaming, they're lost. I mean, there's so many cartoons that never got on DVD. And if they're not on streaming or DVD, they're just freaking gone. And I could list a ton. I mean, who remembers Dragonflies? For those of you who were born in the 90s, let me know if you've ever watched Dragonflies. I did. That was a freaking show, if there ever was one. And so, with the whole thing about Captain Simeon, it had me thinking, I want to talk about 90s cartoons, and I want to talk about how you can watch them. And I found a ton of them on Freevee and Tubi, and a lot. And I'm not just talking about anthropomorphic cartoons like the ones I grew up with, but I'm also talking about ones like Cops. Tell me if you've ever heard of this one. It's Cops, the cop cartoon about super cops. There was a action cartoon for everything. It wasn't just superheroes. It wasn't just DuckTales and superheroes. There was a huge amount of shit. And it was really golden age of animation. I've been reading a lot about animation. I've read a book called Wild Minds by Reed Mittenmuller, and it was a good book. It definitely dispelled a lot of things about Disney and Fleischer as well. But back in the 40s, animation was run by movie studios. And it was really crooked. I mean, people were getting, on strike, and it was really screwy. The 90s, though, it felt like the perfect era for animation. It seemed like, we had the best cartoons coming out. We had the best shows. And people seemed to be happy. I mean, The Lion King was coming out. Some of the best stuff from Disney ever in their entire career came out of that decade. And, it really was the golden age for not just TV and movies. I mean, it was it was for everything. Anime, it was everywhere. I don't know about European and European animation in the 90s, but definitely in North America and Japan, animation was at the height back in the 1990s. And so where can you watch all this shit? I mean, like, not just 90s cartoons are on Tubi and Freevee, but there's also a plethora of 80s cartoons. On Tubi, I saw Inspector Gadget in its entirety and G.I. Joe. And not just G.I. Joe Gen 1, but like Sigma Force with Scarlet and a bunch of other stuff. Like, you know, something about the distribution of these older shows is cheaper or something because they're on the cheap and free streaming apps instead of like the the Netflix and the Hulus and stuff like that. And when I was a Netflix subscriber, I was like, why can't I find this stuff? Like they had the Mario cartoon, like Super Show, not all of them. They just had the season 1. And I'm like, okay, I want to watch more like this. Like this is my speed. I grew up with the Mario cartoon. Apparently, they're just not what they want on the platform. Like I want more 90s era cartoons. And it's a style that it seems like they really phased out. There seems to be kind of like a faux 90s cartoon kind of going on, like a resurgence of the style, but it's not actually in the style. It's like I don't know. It feels plasticky, when I see like X-Men 97, I saw the trailer for it. It has the models, like it looks like the character models and everything from the show, but the way it's directed and the way it's like, the zooms and everything, you can tell it's using modern hardware like Toon Boom Harmony, and it's doing camera moves that you just couldn't do back in the 90s. Like you can't do parallax scrolling zooms and all that other like, cinematic stuff not on a TV budget. And maybe that's like a nitpick. Maybe that's like, well, like it's a good thing that it's more cinematic or whatever. But, my favorite thing about those 90s cartoons was the grit and, just how like lo-fi it was. I think that cartoons look a bit polished. They look a little bit too clean. And, I'm sure X-Men 97 is going to be a really good show, but it doesn't feel 90s to me. It feels like, I don't know. It feels like a modern cartoon with 90s paint on it. And so, I made a cartoon myself and I used it in a way that I know I could have seen it in the 90s. Like camera shots placed in a set, like a TV set, instead of like, the whole background moving around and stuff. I don't know. I mean, like, this is just my perspective, but I think that, animation was kind of limited and they had to do certain tricks and certain techniques. And I think that kind of art is lost. Saturday morning cartoons have always kind of used shortcuts. And, those shortcuts have been kind of like, how can I describe them? They've been affectionate. Like smears. Looney Tunes kind of invented smears. And now smears are just kind of like commonplace. But, that was a limited animation technique. And we love them now. Same could be said for, how I feel about 90s cartoons and, their use of sets and their use of color and their use of backgrounds and all of the tricks that they used. But I'm getting way off topic. I want to come back to my original thought, which is the shows themselves, and talk a little bit about that. So, like, 90s cartoons had tons of action, lots of action, like, and not just superheroes. I mean, there were like two main genres. There were like animal cartoons and there were superheroes, but there were a little bit of in between, like Mega Man and Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and stuff. Like, it wasn't just superheroes. There could be like cartoons in the middle that were a little less than just like your like anthropomorphic characters, or you had your Batman, X-Men, that kind of stuff. It was very diverse, very varied. And I miss that. I miss when cartoons had a sense of adventure and action. And I'd like to see more of that, but I last time I watched Netflix was like 2 years ago, and it was when Sonic Prime had its first season. And it looks like it's trying to get like artsy fartsy, you know? Like, I think Netflix wants to do away with that. They want to get away from like, cheap action movies and cheap action shows. Because I saw some really good looking thumbnails for shows like Oni. There's this animated movie that looks very cute about like some kind of Japanese clay monster named Oni, and that looked like a really fun movie and like very pretty. And then of course the Pinocchio movie came out, and so Netflix has this high budget, this high standard, and the Scott Pilgrim show just came out. I really want to see that, but it feels kind of like, hey, we're better than that. We're better than the 12 episode season 1 block of nothing but, sweaty action. And, like, I like that. I like my ridiculously muscle bound, just like straight up cheese fest action shows. 'Cause, they were fun. They're lasers, they're explosions, there's one-liners. Like, if it's dated, I don't care. I want to live back in that era where you could just, get a bowl of cereal and see a bunch of guys beat each other up. Like, that was my time in cartoons. And I think nowadays they're trying to say, well, that's too violent. You can't have cartoons with nothing but violence. And maybe, but I'd say that was when I thought animation was really fun. And once they stopped doing that style, I switched completely over to primetime cable. And this is talking like 2002 or something like that. So, again, you can watch this stuff. All these 90s cartoons live on Freevee and Tubi, and you can download both for free. And I highly recommend checking them out. They also have some 80s stuff on there. I don't think Thundercats is on there, but you can get Inspector Gadget and G.I. Joe on there, as well as a bunch of 90s stuff. And please just support the indie stuff, because Tubi is really the place for independent creators to shine. I am a big fan of F. Sudol and City of Rot, and a lot of his movies are on Tubi. I'm a big fan of his work, and it's so cool to see that, a one-man person can self-publish on streaming. So, hope everybody's having a good time. It's still my weekend. I work tomorrow, and I just want to have a fun little episode. I had a tidbit kind of thought, tit for tat, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.